In a world driven by quartz and digital precision, there is a timepiece that dared to hum instead of tick. The Bulova Accutron Spaceview, an icon of mid-century innovation, born from the space race and powered by a tuning fork. Today we are diving into the heart of this mechanical marvel, peeling back decades of wear to restore its futuristic soul. The last restoration of this Accutron Spaceview left it over-polished, its edges softened, its character dulled. But today we are giving it a second chance. A new life begins with careful disassembly, and that starts right here, removing the clasp. With a gentle press of the two separate spring bars securing the clasp to the bracelet, it slips free. Next to come off is the bracelet, held tight to the case by two aged spring bars. They are stubborn, worn and far from cooperative. These aren't fresh out of the factory. They've stood their ground for decades, resisting every nudge. It's not always a piece of cake, and this time they put up a little fight. But with patience and steady hand, they finally give away. One more barrier down, and the case begins to breathe again. These spring bars also hold the end links of the bracelet, and because of the heavy buildup of dirt in there, separating them isn't straightforward. It takes some effort. That's how the work on vintage watches looks. Nothing is ever truly clean, and nothing ever comes apart without a story. The last part mounted to the bracelet is the clasp spring. It's held in place by a steel pin, and to separate it, that pin needs to be hammered out. With these steps complete, we can finally move on to the case, starting with removing the battery cover and the battery itself. The cover is screwed onto the caseback and shows some signs of past battles. Not sure why, really. The backside of a pair of tweezers is perfect for this job. It doesn't leave any marks and it gets the job done cleanly. Honestly, every watchmaker have tweezers, but not everyone thinks about them that way. Then I'm removing the screw ring that secures the case back and seals the case. For this job, a special tool is needed, one that has to be adjusted precisely to the diameter of the ring. Once it's dialed in, I can unscrew the ring. And luckily this time it didn't take much effort. A rare moment of cooperation from a vintage watch. With that done, I can separate the movement from the case. And here is something worth noticing. The crown on this watch isn't on the side like most. It's mounted on the case back. That design choice makes the watch perfectly symmetrical, giving the Spaceview its signature futuristic look. It's one of those small details that sets this piece apart. Now I can remove the glass and inner ring from the case. I'm doing it with my fingers wrapped in a delicate cloth to protect the writing underneath the glass. It's a subtle detail, but one slip could erase it. And this glass isn't just glass, it's the window into the soul of the Spaceview. So the case is now free of any parts. Let's move on to the movement still nestled in the case back. To release it, it needs to be carefully pried out. No rushing here, just slow deliberate pressure. And once it's free, we get a rare glimpse at the other side of the movement. It's like the far side of the moon, hidden, untouched, never seen by ordinary eyes. A place only watchmakers dare to explore. But we are not done yet with this assembly. The crown is mounted to the case back, held in place by a spring that keeps it secure. And as always with springs, I should be more careful. The moment I moved it, it flew into the abyss. I will find it later, hopefully. But we can take a look at how much dirt, dust and residue has built up inside this watch. Honestly, there is probably a whole ecosystem of bacteria in here. So please, clean your watches. With everything now separated, we can finally move on to the real restoration, starting with satin finishing the face of the case. There's no magic in this process. All you need is something that lets you drive the case precisely and coarse grit sandpaper. After just a few passes, you start to see how much the case has been rounded over time. There is a lot of sanding ahead to bring that edge back to a clean, flat line. Maybe it's slow, maybe it's boring, maybe it's simple, but thanks to movie magic, you get to see the result in seconds. And it's beautiful. The face of the case begins to breathe again and the watch starts to reclaim its original character. Then it's time for the look edges. This part calls for more sophisticated tools. A lapping device and a lapping machine. Once the case is mounted, I begin adjusting the angles. It's tricky with a case this rounded, so the final angles are more of an educated guess than a precise measurement. Then comes the lapping using coarse grit paper to achieve perfect flatness. This is the most time-consuming part. The edges must be identical on every side, so I go slowly, checking dimensions constantly until the result is flawless to the naked eye. It's not fast, but it's the kind of precision that brings the case back to life. After that, I move on to the finer grit papers. The goal here is simple: erase the scratches left by the coarser grits. That's what guarantees a flawless finish. After the finest grit, the edge is almost polished, starting to reflect like a mirror. So now we move to polishing. The process is nearly the same, but instead of sandpaper, I use polishing cloths with diamond particle sprays. The outcome speaks for itself, but it will look even better once all the edges are either polished or satin finished. Next up is the upper corner polished edge. Its flatness is almost gone, softened by time, wear and guy who polished it before. Just like in previous steps, I adjust the angle to what I believe it should be. There is no blueprint here, so just experience and instinct. Then I begin lapping and polishing slowly, patiently until the edge returns. That's how it works. Then it's time for the lower corner edge. And the process repeats. Adjust the angle, lap with coarser grit, refine with finer papers, and finish with polishing. It's slow, it's deliberate, and it demands consistency. Every edge must speak the same language: flat, clean and sharp. This isn't just restoration, it's rebuilding the geometry that time tried to erase. Now there is one last satin finished edge to do. This part is easier, at least in theory, because I am working with just one coarse grit paper. But here is the truth. In this step you can either ruin everything or create a gem. One touch too much and the case loses its geometry. That's the risk. The final finish is done by moving the case across the lapping disc. No need to adjust angles on another machine like for example belt sander. And I like the look it gives. It's clean, directional and honest. With that, the case is restored. But we are far from done. There are many more parts to bring back to life, and the next one is the case back. It's not in bad condition, so just a few careful passes are enough to restore the satin finish. Then I move on to the lapping machine, adjusting the angle of the beveled edge and lapping it until the result looks like a brand new caseback. With that done, I turn to the bracelet. It's very loose. The links are stretched, but there is an easy solution. I squeeze each link in a vise, one by one. That brings the bracelet back to a much tighter fit. Now I can focus on removing scratches and redoing the brushed finish. First I tackle the scratches with a brush on the polishing machine. I'm not focusing here on perfect brush lines, just removing the scratches. It's a long process, but it's easy and satisfying. Then I polish the sides of the bracelet. I start by removing deeper scratches with a coarse polishing wheel, changing directions as much as possible to achieve a flawless finish. Once I'm satisfied, I give it a final shine. But that's not all. During polishing, some of the brushed finish was lost, so it needs to be redone. This time with extra care to avoid scratching the freshly polished sides. It's a balancing act between precision and restraint. Then I move on to the clasp ring, which could use a new shiny look. I'm not chasing perfection here, this part is hidden from view and restoring it flawlessly doesn't make much economic sense. I just remove these scratches with a polishing wheel and in the process it's get a shine that's close to new. It's a small detail but it adds to the feeling that every part has been cared for. With the clasp ring done, it's time to deface the clasp itself. This tiny part is a horror to restore. It takes time and it has to be done entirely by hands. I start with the main surface. It's heavily scratched, but the Accutron logo is still here, and I don't want to lose it. So I use sticks with sandpaper, carefully working around the logo, removing the damage without erasing originality. It's slow, it's delicate, and it demands full attention. Once the scratches are gone, I apply the brush texture to this area. It's a subtle finish, but it brings back the original character. Then I tape it off to protect the surface while I restore the other sides of the clasp. Every step here is about control, preserving what's been restored while preparing for what's next. It's slow, it's careful, and it's the only way to do justice to a part this small and this important. Then I move on to the other areas of the clasp. I'm still using sandpaper on a wooden stick, but since these surfaces will be polished, the grit needs to be finer. Once I've achieved a scratch-free surface, I begin pre-polishing with my micromotor and a felt tip. This step removes the micro scratches left by the sandpaper and prepares the surface for final polishing. Next, I switch to the conventional polisher. Using a rubber wheel, I carefully remove dents from the corners of the clasp. Then comes the two-step polishing process. First with a coarser polishing wheel and paste. Then with a finer wheel and paste. result is pristine, but we are not quite done. The Accutron logo needs shine, but it is brushed because of the previous steps, so I tape off the clasp with painter's tape. With a rubber wheel I gently remove the tape residue and polish the logo itself. And now the outcome is glorious. There are still more parts to restore. Next up, the screwing ring of the case back. This one's simple. It just needs a touch of polish, a few seconds on the wheel and it's done. No drama, no complication, just a clean, quick pass to bring back its shine. Then comes the crown. I mount it on a 3D printed chuck, designed specifically for this purpose, so I can polish it properly. A few gentle touches with the polishing wheel and it shines like new. But the center part needs a satin round finish. With the polishing wheel acting as a motor for a lapping device and some carefully chosen sandpaper, I achieved that finish. And just like that, the crown is restored. A small part, but one that carries the signature of the watch's character. Now I move to the final part to restore, the battery cover. I begin by removing scratches from its flat surface using sandpaper. Then, mounted onto a specially designed 3D printed chuck, I apply a satin finish to that surface. And with that done, I turn to the beveled edge. It's a small area, so I start with fine grit to avoid altering its geometry. Then I move to even finer grit and finish with polishing. The result? A battery cover that looks brand new. And with that, the restoration phase is complete. Every part has been touched, cared for and brought back to life. Now it's time to begin reassembly. It starts with an inspection of the movement, checking for any dust, debris or signs of wear. The movement is working and it's in good condition, so I won't be servicing it. Sometimes the best decision is to leave what's already working alone. Restoration isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what's needed and knowing when to stop. Then the movement goes into the case. You are probably curious how a tuning fork movement works. In theory, it's simple. In reality, beautifully complicated. The current from the battery flows through coils mounted around the tuning fork. That creates an electromagnetic field and the fork begins to oscillate. These oscillations are transmitted to a tiny pole which pushes the index wheel forward. I can even show that by moving it manually. A second pole prevents the wheel from turning back. Simple, right? But look at these parts. How impossibly small they are. With that mountain climbed, it's time to close the case from this side. We begin with mounting the crown. It needs lubrication to ensure a proper seal. Just a touch, nothing more. Then I slide it into place and secure it with the spring. That's how it was designed. Simple, elegant and functional. Then I mount the caseback gasket. Unfortunately, it's the old one. I've ordered a new gasket, but it hasn't arrived yet. Still, it will do for now. I place it carefully, then fit the case back, making sure the crown stem aligns perfectly. Precision here isn't optional. It's the only way forward. Now I secure the case back with the screw ring. With that done, I lubricate and install the gasket for the battery cover. Then I place the spring that ensures firm contact with the battery. It's a small part, but it carries a big responsibility, connecting power, keeping time alive. And with that, I place the battery inside, a final check for alignment, and then I screw in the battery cover. Now the watch begins to work. Time flows again. Let's assemble the second side of the case. First comes the inner ring. It just needs a bit of cleaning, no dust, no debris. Any trapped under the glass would haunt the restoration. I secure it in the case and now it's time for the glass. I polished it off camera. It's an easy process and there are plenty of tutorials online. I am placing it with my hands. Because, to be honest, the hands are the most precise tool we have. And if they are clean, they don't leave scratches. Then it's time to attach the clasp to the bracelet. I begin by hammering in the pin that connects the clasp ring to the bracelet. Next, I mount the clasp to the clasp ring using a spring bar. It clicks into place and with that the bracelet is ready to return to the case. And that's it. The restoration is complete. Just look at the result. From a soft, soap-like blur case to crisp edges and beautiful satin and mirror finishing. Every surface tells a story. Every detail has been revived. Thank you for watching. See you next time.